Hey everyone, it's Travis, Pagan Scholar. This is going to be an update for the ABCs of Paganism. It's been a hot minute since I've done a video for this. Today I'm going to be talking about I and J, so hopefully I don't actually have any notes in front of me. This is just going to go right off the cuff. But anyways, so for I wanted to talk about identity. Identity is kind of a big deal for me. In college I studied existentialism and specifically how we navigate the struggles of the world around us through who we view ourselves to be and how to most authentically live, to show up and be one's most authentic self, and to make authentic choices in the world. Basically, if we have a concrete, strong sense of identity, then we can figure out why we've been making certain choices and doing certain actions, and how we are navigating the very difficult world around us, and thus find some semblance of peace or clarity or something like that. Within contemporary paganism, I think that this is a very relevant topic because we like to identify as such. I'm a witch. I'm a kitchen witch. I'm pagan, but not a witch. I'm a Hellenic Reconstructionist. I'm a warlock, not a witch. I'm an occultist. There will be more throughout this video, but anyways, essentially what it boils down to is within contemporary paganism, there is some sort of incessant draw, some sort of pull towards labeling ourselves and making sure that everybody knows exactly what kind of weird we all are. This is relevant though, because within this idea that our identity is the sort of philosophical and psychological makeup of the component of what is the self, this makes a lot of sense because a lot of us would come from paths that were not pagan to begin with, and as a reaction, be it internal or external or voluntary or involuntary, we like to establish that I am not other. The self is everything that is contained within this mostly watertight skin bag. That is everything that is I is within this. Upon that self, this skin bag that is mostly watertight, we don garments, we don accoutrements, and we stylize ourselves, what is external, the garments in Kabbalah actually, what is observable to others outside of ourselves. So again, others, I just said it naturally, view what we proclaim to be self. Self then extends into community. And so the outsider, the other, the monster, the stranger, I talked about this in Strangers, Gods, and Monsters, but yeah, the community becomes self, and everything outside the community becomes other, and therefore not self. Within the contemporary pagan context, we like to label ourselves as very specific niche types of pagans. This could be geographical in terms of different or cultural pantheons. Some people ascribe to a Hellenic bent, some people are Celtic Reconstructionists, some people are Nordic, some people are I don't know, Germantic. I mean, that starts to split hairs within the Nordic stuff, but anyways, I'm not a whatever those practitioners are called, heathen. I'm not a heathen. So those are very specific types of identities. This is a person who ascribes to a pantheon of a specific culture, might do so because of genealogy, or they might do so just because of personal taste. But by giving oneself over to a geographical or cultural pantheon or mentality in paganism, they are taking on all of the emotional, psychological baggage, all of the aesthetic that is that cultural thing, and they are incorporating that into themselves. On a less grand scale of things, some people ascribe to being a kitchen witch, which is like the and I know witchcraft and paganism are not synonymous, but anyways, very far removed from like a Thelmic Order of the Golden Dawn magician. Like, it's different. And these are two very specific and disparate identities within practice. Each comes with their own very specific cultural baggage, their aesthetics, essentially, and their solutions for problems, the metaphors that they imply are all very, very different, and they are things that shape the self and shape how the self engages with the outside world. A kitchen witch is going to respond to losing their job radically differently than a chaos magician. However, there is still intersecting similarities within the experience of losing one's job that we can find harmony with others that are not the self, and we can work towards understanding communication and essentially a hermeneutics of the self. Now, all of this sounds like not that big of a deal, or it is a big deal, but it sounds like it's not problematic, and everything is problematic. So let's make it that way. Another way that we identify within the pagan community, I'm going to say a broad swath of people like the idea of the zodiac. So the zodiac is a lot to unpack, but essentially it's sets of identities that one is assigned due to when they are born. People can choose to accept these identities and find similarities and congruency and really interesting and uncanny, like, oh yeah, hey, I am a Taurus, aren't I? Or they can choose to reject them outright because it's cherry picking and it's essentially choosing like an aesthetic that uplifts and justifies, which is the J word that I want to talk about, certain behaviors. However, so personal anecdote. On Facebook, I saw a person who was responding to like a poll, and one of the questions on the poll was, what's your zodiac sign? They responded with 8 answers to this one question of what is your zodiac identity. They responded with their solar, lunar, and ascending sign within the Western zodiac, which is fine, that's cool. They then responded with their Chinese zodiac sign, which has a dual nature of like the year you were born and a 5 cycle of which year you were born. So not only were they like a rat, but they were like a water rat or something like that. I don't know. And then they responded with their Western zodiac sign again, but in the Western zodiac sign according to the Vedic calendar. They used the Hindu astrological system to give 1, 2, and 3 their solar, lunar, and ascending sign one more time. And this is problematic because it grants an excuse. Essentially is what I'm saying. It is a justification for any sort of behavior that one wants. It's like, oh, I can't help it, I'm just an Aries. It's like, no, Karen, you're just a bitch. So that's a very tired old joke. But essentially, so this is the person who has listed 8 different distinct personality traits. They can essentially say like, oh, well, I'm a Taurus, but what I don't like about a Taurus, I can make up for in the fact that I'm actually Sagittarius. And what I don't like about being Sagittarius, I get to make up for because I'm a Gemini. And because I'm also in the Vedic calendar a Leo, I get all of those bonus qualities too. Essentially, whenever we permit our identity to justify all of our actions, it becomes a hollow excuse, and you sort of don't really have an identity anymore. You sort of lose your credibility because you're allowing yourself all these random different interpretations. A really good way of putting it is not just within the self and like all these multiple zodiac signs, but within the pagan community, when we have so many intersecting different types of people, which is great. Multiculturalism is wonderful, pluralism is great. However, whenever we become so finely, granularly different, you start out with a whole, you start out with this thing, this community, this identity, I guess, and you cut it in half. And so first you have a front and a back, and then you cut it again. And so you have front right, front left, back right, back left. And then you cut it again. And then you cut it again. And again, and again, and again, and again, and again, becoming more and more and more specific. However, eventually you no longer have a cohesive system of understanding who people are and where they're coming from and what they're going to do. And eventually you just have a mess of stuff, of unidentifiable and indistinguishable names. And eventually these names don't make any sense. Eventually you can just justify and excuse any sort of behavior because you can find a niche demographic name that permits basically fucking everything. So if everything is permitted, then nothing makes sense. If everything means everything, then nothing means anything, essentially. Now some people will say that I'm just like shitting on the Zodiac and I'm like poo-hooing labels. Labels are good, labels are great, and the Zodiac is a really fun and interesting tool to explore the psychological ramifications of why we feel the way we do about certain things. Totally. I'm okay with like Myers-Briggs personality types. I'm 100% down with the Enneagram actually, and I like these tools. However, within justification of our actions, I feel like our identities, while they are relevant to our actions, eventually with so many like opportunities to add to like, oh, well, I'm a Leo and I'm also a snow witch and I'm also a snake in the Chinese zodiac, but I'm a wood snake, not a fire snake. And it's like, okay, eventually you have to stop and you have to like pick one, and that is why you're doing something. That is the responsibility behind your actions, and it's kind of like you need to eventually just demarcate your identity. Like, yes, we're all growing individuals. Yes, we are all seeking growth and changing and dynamic and not static things in this wonderful magical experience that we call life. However, there is still an anchor. There is still a foundation upon which we react to things, and that foundation is our identity. Whenever our identity becomes so convoluted with so many different directions and elements, eventually you no longer have an anchor, but just like a soup of ideas that isn't really substantial enough to correctly justify your actions. It just becomes kind of blasé and sort of just unappealing. One of the major things that sticks out in my memory from my Mormon upbringing is there was I was arguing with some church official, as I typically did because I was an angry goth teenager, and he responded just off the cuff with this amazing line, and he said, you know what, the road to hell is paved with good justifications. And I was like, damn, I didn't know how to respond to that, because everybody has a justification for their action, but standing by your actions and saying like, okay, my identity not only justifies certain actions, but it also prohibits other actions. I feel like that is the marking of a strong identity. That is the thing that says, oh, I don't do this because my identity, the core of my being, says, no, I don't. I don't really know how well received this video is going to be. I hope it's understood as like a topic for conversation and not like a hard, fast, 100% thesis thought out thing. But yeah, it's kind of an irritating thing when our identities justify laziness on our character, if that makes any sense. When we have so many different options, which are great. It's always great to have multiple options. But whenever that permits like this lackadaisical approach of like, oh, well, it's okay because I can probably find somewhere in some obscure zodiac that's totally made up, like the Native American zodiac that I've never heard of, but there was a Facebook quiz about last week, and I'm totally a beaver. Like, you know, it's just kind of frustrating that people don't stand by their convictions, or when they do have a conviction that isn't like easily justifiable, they just like cherry pick this new identity that says like, oh, well, I responded that way because I'm a Gemini too. And it's like, but you're a Cancer. Why don't you just stick with that? You know? Anyways, curmudgeonly old man aside, I don't give a fuck. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would appreciate your feedback. I know I'll probably get shit for this, but I don't care. It's, like I said, I'm much like identity, dynamic and growing and really open to change. And so, yeah, it's kind of a paradox, a conundrum. But that is all communication. That is all conversation. And so please comment below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. I'm a fairy. I'm Wiccan. I'm a radical fairy. I'm a tree witch. I'm a root worker. I'm a natural witch. I'm an Egyptian pantheon dream worker. I'm a Reiki master who's only been practicing for 3 months. I'm an academic shadow worker. I'm a traditional witch. I'm a Satanist, but not House of Set Satanism, but also Anton LaVey. I don't know, fuck. I'm a gay witch. I'm a Ravenclaw. I'm a Slitherclaw. No, just pick one. You don't get to like, no, just one. Ravenclaw or Slytherin, which one are you?